'cause I'm going down the road to a brand new place, and I'll get there with a smile on my face. Yeah, so lift me up, I'm moving on, singing and dancing while I play my song.
Welcome, your backup plan tribe, to this week's show. And it's going to be an amazing one because, when we have a death in the family of friends, which is very common, in the last 2 years, death can be such a sad moment, and to try to get through it in grief. And our show today is called Is There a Gift in Death? So you're going to want to stay tuned for our show. My name is Tina Ginn. If you are new here, this is Talking Taboo with Tina. Of course, we talk about real, raw conversations with our listeners about their journey from a life-changing event that's been in their life. And if you don't know what your backup plan is, I'm an emergency preparedness coach, a best-selling author of In the Blink of an Eye. And that's how quick something happens, is in the blink of an eye. Yes, we're not given 5-minute evacuation notices on most times. We are just put into a particular situation, tragedy or disaster or whatever that we are blessed with at the moment, and we have to deal with it. And so Mike Tyson sometimes says, everyone has a plan until you get punched in the mouth. And how true is that? I'm a financial expert. I'm located here in beautiful Vancouver, BC, Canada. I'm an app developer of your Backup Plan app. And your Backup Plan app puts your life all in one place in case of any unpredictable circumstance, while taking that painful aftermath out of that tragedy. Because we put so much emphasis on the stress when someone is passing or when someone will be passing, found a lot of times in dementia or cancer patients, when you've got a little bit of time and you're thinking, what do I need to get together? What do I need to prepare myself or my family for the next journey of my life? And we get scared and we get frightened, and then we don't want to do it. So what I'm trying to tell people is that it can be very easily done with giving worksheets. We're created emerging blueprint program from your backup plan. You can easily use the app. It goes through categories and stages of whatever it is that you would like to put together. It gives you information about your insurance policies, funeral arrangements, your wishes, your family conversations, with worksheets that are given to you when it's such a difficult time to ask those taboo questions. But it's a proper time. When the proper time is not when someone is passing away, but way before that, when they're healthy and happy and they can think straight. Because when something happens in your life, you have a change of your brain. Basically, anything logical just disappears in that moment, and it lasts for quite a long time. You feel like you're in shock, and you can't think, and you can't find anything. So it just complicates everything so much more. But this way, you can be more present with the person. You can be more present with the family and friends, and that you can get through it together with support and love, of course. So, if you're thinking about, it's not going to happen to me, it is. It's going to happen to all of us. It's going to happen to each and one, all of it around us. And we can make it better by being better prepared. So if you haven't already liked, shared, or subscribed to our channel, please do, because I always get my hand out and I always put it the wrong way. But please like, share, and subscribe down here in the corner. Push on that follow button, because, we would love to have you with part of your backup plan tribe. If you haven't clicked on the bell, the bell will notify you of any upcoming videos or live streams. I'd like to welcome all of my listeners, United States and Canada, one of the two top listeners, as well as Germany, Ireland, and now Norway, believe it or not, as well as the UK. So congratulations to everybody. I welcome everybody on board. I'd like to welcome my German listeners. My voice is kind of going scratchy today for some reason. Lots of allergies, lots of new spring stuff coming out right now. Meine deutsche Freunde sind in unserem Podcast willkommen. Wenn Sie Kommentare haben, können Sie gern Fragen stellen. Also danke für deine Freundschaft. Und danke fürs Hören, meine deutsche Familie. So thank you so very much. If you have found us on this show today, you have found us for a reason. There's a reason why you found us. And I'd love for you to share these kinds of shows that we have, because you never know who you can touch, who you can inspire or motivate next. So we'd like to welcome to our show our guest today, Ruchika, and I'm going to call her on right now and give her a great introduction to our show. Hi.
Hello.
My voice has gone all funny. I don't know. It's like I've talked all day and night. I'd love, thank you for joining us today. This is Ruchika Handa. She's from beautiful Holland, and she is an energy coach, a life coach, founder and owner of Elegance of Living. She provides therapy and coaching for people going along their journey and their change of life. She offers different various programs, which we'll get into as well, because we always like to know how you can help us and how you can give us some tips and tricks as well, which I know you have up your sleeve today for our show. So thank you for coming on. Where did it all start for you, Ruchika?
As a late bloomer, I did not get this kind of a feeling inside that coaching is what I'd like, and so I dabbled different years, and it was actually my own circumstances where I have 3 children, and my middle one with autoimmune illness from the age of 2 till about 12.
Hold on. We're losing you. We get little bits and then we lose a little bit of you. I don't want to miss your story.
Right. Let's
try that.
Pause. And if I'm again going in.
Do you want to go out and come back in? Let's try that. So we're going to have her come right back to our show. It's nicer to hear all of her story than little bits and try and guess. So I'm excited to hear what she has to say. She's been through quite a few experiences of people around her, of death, and she has some great tips for us. So I'm really excited to have her come back in and share those. Here she comes. There she is.
Hello again.
There we go.
Tell me, how is it now?
Sounds good. Sounds good.
All right. So in those years when I was looking after my son and I was feeling very drained out because it seemed as if we were just moving from one illness to another, never really getting to the root of it, I was not able to keep that balance and be there for my other children equally. So that was a very big turning point, and I was put in touch with Access Consciousness, which is the modality that I trained with and that connected me with who I truly am, and woke me up into owning my gift of tapping into energy. To me, it is natural, but I have now realized when I work with clients that something that's innate in us is not something that we acknowledge.
Although you did after a certain point where it made
Yes,
you realize.
yes, exactly. And then it all started adding back that I'd had these unique experiences even in my early years, from as far as back as when I was 7 years old, and my parents they believe in a faith for of which we met with the Guruji once, and in India. And now I'm talking of this over 40 years ago, and he just put his hand on my head, and I felt as if I was connected with the entire universe in that moment. And that stayed with me.
That's
And
very interesting.
after that, also in times of extreme crisis in my life, I would have this dream of that same guru present in that room with me and just touching me on my head. And it felt as if all the load that I'd been carrying would just leave me. And I would feel as if I am this infinite source of energy that can power on. And I'm
Mhm.
far bigger than any challenge that I'll ever come across, rather than the opposite of what we believe to be the challenge as the bigger of the two of us.
Yes. Because we, as humans, I think we look at something that's visual. We have to visually see it. Otherwise, we don't somehow believe it. So, what you're doing is you're going into the belief part and believing it, and then you can create.
Absolutely. And I'm believing without having any validation of what am I believing in, except that that belief is inside of me. So I'm turning inwards. And I am so grateful that I had these experiences and could also remain open to them. Because I don't think I'm the only one. We all do come across these life changing moments, but then we somehow tend to shrink them to fit into some rational and don't allow ourselves to receive that infiniteness.
The goodness.
Yes. Goodness without any form or structure attached to it. We are looking more for, all right, how can I control this instead of letting it control you in a way?
Yeah, I guess we don't want to be.
Yes, you hit the nail on the head. We don't want to be. Control is something that we really enjoy. And I do too, having had these experiences, the rest of my life, or a large part of it, still is about control.
It is. Because when something does happen, I mean, the first question that you put in your head is, why? Why
Yeah,
did they take
exactly.
that little tiny girl of 2 years old? Why did they take my husband who had so many more things to do in life?
Yeah.
Why?
Yes. As if knowing that why will free us, but the truth is it doesn't.
But we want it to.
Yeah, indeed, indeed.
So
And
you
so
had
that's
a
how,
you
yeah.
started from that, but you had a death in your family as well.
Yes, that was 3 years ago, and it was when my father-in-law was nearing the end of his battle with cancer, and he was in India, we living here in the Netherlands. Um, we decided for my husband to go while I would stay behind and be with the children, because the end is not something you can predict whether it would be a week later or a month later. So, but the day he left, that was the very night that again I had this dream where I saw my father-in-law just take off his slippers outside a temple, and the temple had marble columns, like I could see the detail. And he is looking healthy, radiant, unlike the sick person with cancer that I could see visually. And he steps in, and you could see a kind of a light radiating out from the temple. And he walks in, and he doesn't come out again. And it felt as if death, with its finality as we know it, as loss, as tragedy, was in that moment transformed for me. My mind could no longer control me into saying that death is all about loss and grief. Instead, death became a source of, uh, or rather, a connection with life in a way that I had not known before. When we have a child as parents, like, it's the mindset at work that birth is always associated with joy and death with grief. Here in this one dream, death and grief just disconnected, and death just became another stage of your life.
Another beginning of the next.
Yes.
Yeah. Like he was walking into a bright light of
Of a
beauty.
temple, as if he had done that part of living which we all experience, and I have our own journeys with it, and had gone into a level of consciousness or spirituality. It is how it resonates with you. And even as I talk right now, I get goose pimples. And he was still alive, but that dream told me with the finality that yes, it was time to prepare yourself. It gave me that strength to prepare rather than to be desperate to grab at the time left. I could actually, in my heart, say, all right, it's what it is for you.
Yeah.
Almost as if a person who had visited you is now going to go back, and you're standing at the railway station and saying, all right, see you again sometime.
It's sad, but if you know that it's not forever, and it's pleasurable, like where they're going is good, then it doesn't feel too sad. Right?
Yes, because we exist in both forms, I would say, in the physical, in which it is about loss and it is about receiving, and the conscious, which is more about no form or structure. Your physical part does grieve. When he finally did pass on, by that time I was already back here with the children, since we'd spent 10 days there in India. And again, the discussion between my husband and I was, shall I or shall I not? And again, just before we decided, and I was at my parents' place in New Delhi, and to take a flight back later that night, in the afternoon, while just taking a nap, I had this dream again of my father-in-law standing there, and my husband and I had brought a jacket, and he tries it on, and he says it's a good fit, but it doesn't feel very warm. So I was like, all right, Papa, the next time we come. But he holds up his hand and he says, there will be no next time. So I was crying, and so when I woke up, I found my cheeks were damp with tears, and I tell my husband that we have to change our flight. So his rational was on and my instinct was on. So he took the rational path. We left, and the first message I see when I land here is that he passed on at 3:40, and our flight took off at 3:20. So you see, it was again just for me a lesson to kind of choose for yourself rather than to let others choose for you. Like, own yourself to that extent. If you really wanted to stay, you could have stayed. I was angry at my husband for some time, but then the grief set in, because here you're alone. So there is
Yeah.
no way to process it. But when you're with family, there is a reason that you come together to mourn a person. And it just allows the grief to go. So because I had left, I knew that now I had to kind of give myself that space to grieve rather than to deny its presence just because you're no longer going through the rituals, or the burials or everything associated with death.
So you're not with
So
the others. You mean
yes,
well, some people call it celebrations. You're not present to do that together.
right. So I gave myself that grace. And in doing so, I actually saw how physically my body would be slow. It's almost everything had turned into a slow motion. And after 5 days of not going out of the house, when I stepped out to do groceries that day, it took me about 2 hours because I would pick up two things and then just sit down or just stare as if I didn't know what to do next. And I realized that we don't do that very often for us, because we kind of take on that responsibility cloak and say, all right, let's get on, let's get on, let's get on. You don't have to get on every time. If you get that awareness in your life and allow your body to also guide you, so many times you will be making decisions of what to eat, what to wear, what to do far more differently. So this whole process of grieving for a person you'd lost and you were not there with, of having dreams about their passing before they did, actually changed my perspective over what death is. And I realized that just like any other stage of your life, death can also contribute to you. And since then, I've had another client with terminal cancer, and she did not make it. She passed away. But when she was taking sessions from me, and she looked at me in my eyes, stared at me and said, "Aren't you scared of dying?" And I said, "No, I'm not." And she was able to kind of come to terms with her own passing away, because somewhere the ease that I have with death as a stage of life uh, allowed her to let go and find her own peace with herself. And in doing so, somewhere I guess her son, her husband, could also embrace her as a presence without a physical shape, and yet have her
There,
in their
still
lives.
there.
Yes.
Well, that's really beautiful. I talk to people all the time in my shows for the listeners that listen all the time to the shows. We talk about being present for that person. And just like your father-in-law, if you went and you held his hand and helped him get better, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But if you're not able to be present, then you're worried about all the frivolous stuff of family situations and estate plans, and does he have a will, and where it is, and what about the investments, and where are the accounts, and where's the insurance, and all of the stuff that I call stuff. Sometimes I call it worse than that. um, I I think that we're not present, and we just want to. You see families all the time fighting. Um, we're not really sure what they're fighting about. They're just fighting for equality, or what they feel. Sometimes even strangers, when a death happens, you find a stranger or a friend thinking that they want to be in on it as well because they have a substantial relationship with that person. But so it just complicates everything. But by you saying you know that they're going to a good place, and that you know that they're continuing, and that you know that it's a happy place, changes that concept around to that I see, that this is what I'm seeing anyways. Don't you think, like, when you can be present and be there for the person, it changes your mindset?
Absolutely. Yes. Because you come clean into owning your feelings. A lot of our turmoils and conflicts within ourselves or with people in our lives um, are coming up because we aren't able to feel. Like, even on a different note, but my daughter, she's not very expressive with her feelings. And if you ask her, okay, so how was school today? She'll be like, it's harmless in itself. Whereas, but if you see shoulders going up like this, very often when you ask, how are you feeling? Somewhere a person has already started feeling uncomfortable with expressing their feelings. And it's not healthy. And it's happening everywhere. We are so conditioned to say when we are at work and your colleague asks you, so, hey, how are you doing? Oh, I'm good. Are you really? Like, nobody's good 7 days or 5 days a week.
But we always
So
say I'm fine or good, or even when we go to the doctor, I always say it's so funny because the doctor will say, how are you today? And it's like, well, why am I here?
exactly. And a little of owning
Oh,
at that moment. Again, is it flipping out?
it just did for a second, but it sounds all right
Okay.
now.
Okay. So yeah, it does not allow. Every time you deny yourself to feel is a moment of not being present. And I've heard you emphasize on being present. I'm so glad you're kind of bringing attention to it. And even though this episode is more about death and
After.
parting, and after that, it's also equally important for us to kind of own up to our feelings related to that person who's passing away. Not only in the morning, that is immediately after, but later also. uh, Feel, to be able to hurt, to be vulnerable without a sense of awkwardness or
Judgment.
shame or judgment about your feeling.
Yes.
What would the world be like if we could just feel as spontaneously as children do? And the best examples for yourself to check in whether you're feeling right or whether you're just brushing yourself off is if you have children and you see them and their spontaneity or the lack of it is you coming home to that truth. And it may be that 5 out of 10 times you brush it off, but even those remaining times, if you do own up and start allowing yourself to practice it in little moments, is immensely powerful.
Yes. And what do you think happens when there's a death, Ruchika? Do you think there's so many fights and arguments and stress, and your brain isn't capable of working? Do you find that? It's like it's the logic part of your brain just is incapable.
Yes, it
So
is.
what is that part? What is happening, do you think?
It's no one answer that fits all to begin with, because we are all so unique. Some of us will break down at that point because the emotional overwhelm hits you like a tsunami. But then, uh, when you're with a different set of people, you find it more comfortable to put on that facade and be done with it.
And the mask, put the mask on.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So that's the side that is there for the world to see. And as far as the person that has uh, ended their current physical form, we have so many doctrines and philosophies and religions tell you that it is one life giving way to another. And what is that other life going to be is so dependent on what your actions in this and your past lives were. The mystery around it, I feel, is demystifying more and more because we are asking more questions now
Yeah, we are.
than our previous generations used to. For them, the word of whatever that they were following, their faith or a guru or anything, was literally like a word in stone or in their holy books to be adhered to. And now you're asking questions because, from one hand, science is bringing quantum entanglements and energy, and on the other hand, energy based therapies are also kind of just spreading out. And if you ask energetically, what is death? It is just another stage as birth is.
Coming and going, kind of.
Yeah, yeah.
I guess it's just like they took another drive down a different road.
Yes, indeed.
And so
Indeed.
I guess if you look at it like that, then you can say to yourself, well, I'll see them when I get to that part of the road too. I'll make sure I turn down that street.
Yeah, that's a very interesting way of putting it.
I don't know where it came from, but for some people, they might really wonder, what is Tina on? I don't know. But I just thought that would make things, when you're sitting there, because, when you're in such pain when the person's passing away, you just think of all these negative things and all the what ifs and why does it have to happen, and I don't want them to go.
Indeed.
But if you could think of it just that they just got to that street before I did, maybe they took the turn, and when I get to that road, I'll take the turn.
Indeed, it is to look at it from, allow yourself to look at it from both perspectives, because why is all that outpouring of emotions happening? It is all your feelings that you have shared with that person, all of them coming in front of you at that moment. And there are so many things that, even though we may be very intimate with that person, we often do not allow ourselves to say. And once you are at that finale, it is all going to come out. And allow yourself that. If you are aware that, death is just another stage, it does not mean that you have to negate your feelings to be able to accept that.
Right. Accept your feelings.
Yes. Just embrace all the goodness, the badness, the nastiness, the highs and the lows that you have shared with that person. Some will make you joyful. Another set of emotions and feelings, memories will really take you down into the dumps. So it's a roller coaster. There is no not getting on it when a person is ending their life that was very close to you.
Mm-hmm.
But what kind of allows you or rather, it'll either empower you or you will come away so drained that you'll require a much longer time to recover. So, the empowering thought here is as I lose this person is going on to their next life, and I'm not really losing them. For me, life is also taking a different route. I am in my car going down that road, and as you said, he's in his car going down that road. And till this point, we were all both in the same car.
Yeah.
So
It,
just
it
that
kind of makes me
awareness.
feel better.
Yeah,
So hopefully it makes someone else out there feel better too.
I hope so. Giving
Tina's
yourself those
analogy.
6, 7 days of grace to mourn, to cry, to rejoice in having known that person is usually the time the body requires. If it's taking you longer, you're not wrong. You just be aware that it's your mind that is holding on longer to that person. Whereas your body, if you just let it guide you, will say after 6, 7 days, like, I'm done.
Yeah.
It is out of me. I have detoxed myself.
Give
The
yourself
rest,
grace to.
yes.
Did you experience clients that have had difficulties with the stuff, quote unquote, afterwards, so that when they're going through this, they're worried, like it's part of the worry? It's part of, well, are they going to, am I leaving them behind with a mess? Or, like there's regrets of not giving your emotions as well, but there's regrets of not having my stuff together or not having something in place for the family that you leave behind, whatever that looks
No,
like.
no, I haven't had that with my clients.
The emotion, I find very difficult because it doesn't allow you to think appropriately, which causes sometimes anger. It can create frustration. It creates all of these, to me, that I've seen, negative impacts on a person because they don't know how to express the feelings because they haven't dealt with the stuff, so to speak. So I always try to push upon people to do the stuff part while you're feeling good. And then when something does happen, it's just as easy as this piece of paper here and saying, here you go, Tina. Everything's all on this one piece of paper. You don't have any more worries. And now you can concentrate on becoming more in tune with what happened and how you can overcome that. I find that grief gets in the way of thinking logically and feeling normal and uh, I'm not going to say loving yourself, but it kind of stops them in their tracks.
Yeah, yeah. I totally hear you there, and um, those feelings and emotions, especially their intensities, distorts pictures of the simplicity and overly complicates issues, which, as you've mentioned, is so healthy for the mental health of the entire family to process before, because there is a time and space for everything. And when you're
Yes.
still good in your health, to have processed your paperwork is so much um, sorted for the family that you're leaving behind.
Do you want to wreck my makeup? Tina's being her usual self. I had another question. How does somebody feel those emotions? How do they release those emotions so that they're not regretful after something occurs?
Thank you for that.
How do they allow themselves to be vulnerable?
Thank you for that question. That's really a very powerful state that you're hinting at, because we don't allow ourselves to be vulnerable in the best of times. Forget the bad one. Asking yourself a question constantly is the best way for you to keep unmasking the cover that is your protective shield. If you are the near and dear one to this person who is on their way out, even the courage that it takes to have those final conversations is all that you require. The conversations will happen so long as you have that courage, and do not judge yourself of whether you're right or wrong in asking them or in wanting to talk to them. Once you take just those first one or two steps, which are the most difficult ones, where you will often falter and say, let it be, let's just be comfortable and let that person also be equally comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And instead choose. And that courage is more of your own overcoming your judgment. There is nobody else around you who is going to judge you. And even if they do, it's the moment, actually, if you are really truly committed to processing your emotions, every time you judge yourself or anybody else judges you, it's actually a trigger for you to expand out, not the opposite of shrinking in. And by expand out, I mean asking the questions of opening your heart. It all just, you might find it too difficult to believe, but it all will flow out so long as you choose the moment of judgment as the moment of acting. And the more uncomfortable you are, is an indication that you're on the right track.
As hard as it is.
Yes.
Are women better at it than men?
Generally, yes.
Is that
Yes.
because of our upbringing, do you think?
Yes.
We're allowed to express feelings a little bit easier?
Yes. Yes.
So men are finding grief very difficult then, because they don't process it.
As a general rule, yes, but there will be exceptions to both of them. There will be those men that are far more fluid and connected with their emotions, and women not. But generally, let's just assume for the sake of speaking that yes.
What about people that think that they're open, but they really aren't? They think
Indeed.
that they can open up, but when they do, at least I see it with some of my guests, and I think, wow, you're open, okay.
And we would also do that to our own selves, fool us into thinking we are being open while we are not. So the way to check yourself is to really feel that discomfort. And by the discomfort, I mean as if you were to suddenly be told to go up on stage and address the audience. That kind of a feeling inside of you is that feeling that will tell you whether you are truthfully being open or not.
Truthful to yourself, because if you are trying to fool yourself.
Absolutely.
Did you have any other messages you'd like to give about the story or your program? We forgot to mention that.
Right. So my only message to all of you that are listening to this is that we get this life to thrive in it. We can thrive when we remain conscious and allow our mind to add to it rather than the other way around. And when you're feeling, allowing yourself to feel honestly, you're thriving, even in the face of death. And there is this gift of death when you allow yourself to feel your way through it as well.
And how you know that you're feeling it is by checking in on yourself.
Absolutely. And as I was telling you earlier, that one of my programs, Transform Your Relationships and Thrive, no matter who you're with, is is a program very close to my heart. It's a 2-workshop, 1 month long program where you get to check in with your relationship with yourself and those that are in your life. So if you find that that's something that's a part of your journey, of your transformation, then you're very welcome to check out in the details that Tina, you will be providing, right?
That's right. They'll be down and below in the description box. Just as
Yes.
soon as I finish the show, I'll be adding them in. That's
Okay.
beautiful. I had a quick question about your comment. How do they know, like regret is a big part of the problem. And being regretful is usually come from not opening up and not being present, as we talked about. So how can they overcome that? Before by being open, and after by dealing with not being open and not having that opportunity. I didn't take that opportunity when they were alive, so to speak.
The day you decide to open up, whether it is before or after the person has died, regret will start easing up on you, because that is your judgment of not having allowed yourself something. And how are you going to open up? It's, as I said, if you're struggling too much with regret and are still kind of finding your way about, should I go to a therapist? Should I read a book? Should I, listen to something that will allow me to get some tools? Even this part of you, which is right now striving, is so huge. I do hope that you are taking a moment to embrace this, that I am asking questions and I am doing something about it. So embrace that. And if you find yourself getting stuck of, just going round in circles, is that time where just ask that question of the universe, can I get a push from somewhere? Because I think right now my mind is just taking me around in circles. And you will get it. You will get it. So long as your intent is in place.
As long as you recognize it first, is the recognition of it.
Correct.
To take you to that other next spot.
Yes, absolutely. There are stages in our journey of change, and if today you're asking how to change regret, well, where were you in your previous stage, and what does the next stage look like to you?
Mm-hmm.
And that will not allow you to remain stationary at one place.
And that's why I say to have conversations around all of these topics before something occurs, so that we can talk about feelings and we can talk about the what ifs and we can talk about what does that person want, because we come in alone and we go out alone. So what does that person want it to look like? Whether it's, retirement and you have Alzheimer's or something, what do they want it to look like? As well as death, what do they want it to look like? And it's hard to have these conversations if we're not being honest with our emotions, I think, to start with.
Yes.
So I that's why I really push for people to embrace that.
Indeed. Indeed. That's
To
very beautifully said.
Oh, thanks. It wasn't my point, but just coming from you, I think. Did you have any other final messages you'd like to give the listeners?
Just choose you. Choose you, be you, do you, whatever that looks like for you. And don't strive for perfectionism, because you're an organic, dynamic being. Choose you, whatever that looks like.
That's lovely. Thank you, Ruchika. Thank you so very much. That's wonderful.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to have this conversation with you, Tina.
And you too. It was awesome. I might have you on again because we just can't get enough good energy from how to deal with things like this. It's a tough topic. Hence my tears all the time on my show. My podcasts don't get a chance to see the tears, but my YouTube channel does. So whichever one you want to do, that's okay with me. So when you are thinking about someone special today in your heart right now, when you're listening to the show, please reach out to them. Pick up the phone. We still have phones. Text, call, FaceTime, whatever. Go visit them in person, whatever that might look like, because you don't know what tomorrow might bring. Take a moment and subscribe to our channel down below. Geez, my hand. There we go. Get out the gardening glove from our hand down below, subscribe, and click on that bell because you might want to get notified when our next shows are coming up. We have podcasts and live streams every week, interesting and accomplished people in the world. Today, I think you'll be entertained, informed, and hopefully we have inspired and motivated you, just like Ruchika has for all of us today. She's an amazing person and really providing lots of healing and love out in the world. Just, you're a beautiful soul, Ruchika. Just beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So I hope we've got you all ready to start thinking about your unique plan, about how important it is to have these difficult family conversations. You can join our workshops on having fun with this, not having difficulties, but embracing the time that we're able to print off the worksheet, have those discussions, write it down, tick off the boxes, have some wine, have some coffee or tea, have some appies, and enjoy the time because it's very special. Thank you again to all our listeners, and that we are on all podcast platforms: YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and of course TikTok. And we have a Facebook community group on Facebook that gives us a chance to be part of the community and ask questions or conversations around with others that are going through difficult times. So thank you for sharing your time with us. Thank you for choosing to spend your time with us. It's a delight to have you all here. I always end our show with Carol Burnett. I don't know if you know who Carol Burnett is. She's an American that had a very funny comedian on the United States and Canadian, North America, basically. I don't think she was ever international, but very funny, beautiful lady that I love what she always said at the end of her shows. I'm so glad we had this time together just to have a laugh or sing a song. Seems we just get started, and before you know it, comes the time we have to say so long. So long, everybody. So long, Ruchika. Thank you. Thank you for coming on our show. And thank
It's
you,
my
listeners. You're very welcome. Till next time, be kind, stay safe, and remember, expect the unexpected. Bye for now.